Good morning and welcome to Richard Sherman.
Yay! Thank you.
The crowd goes wild. Richard Sherman, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I had to stop myself. I didn't say the A word because we now have to say the R word.
Oh, yes, because it's Radius. Radius Agent Realty. Yeah, Radius Agent.
Richard Sherman from Radius.
That's it. The Richard Sherman part, I mean, with all due respect to the people I work for, and I love them madly, but I think the Richard Sherman part's the more relevant part.
It is Sherman with a Z.
Sherman with a Z.
What do you have? What are we talking about today?
I come with good news today, as a matter of fact.
Love
I was
good
almost
news.
going to be a little late, so I was getting the last of this morning.
Uh-huh.
We, as part of our stuff, trying to keep people in their houses, trying to prevent foreclosures, trying to fight for our clients, and fighting the good fight against the banks, I should say, more accurately. Anyway, we have these investors that we call angel investors that pop up every so often. An angel investor is somebody who comes in and says, I will be happy to loan these people money to get them out of the jam they're in. They're usually fairly short-term loans, but they're very, very inexpensive. They're less than usually half of what you'd pay in a private money market, or the hard money market, if you like that. And you can get them, which is much harder to get in those markets. So I have one of those clients who we just finished out a deal. It was a little bit long term, and they got paid back every cent they were owed, which is wonderful. So I gave them a call and I said, hey, you just got all that money paid back. How'd you like to do that again? And they said, sure, you bet. So what I'm here today to announce is we have some money to help people get out of mortgage debt and out of problems with foreclosures and things of that nature. So if you have a second, or if you have a first or whatever going wrong with a mortgage, and you can't do a refi for some reason, which applies to a lot of people, especially if you're in a forbearance, or you got or just coming out of one, or if you have various other problems, give me a call, because in addition to all of our regular stuff, which is fighting with banks and getting out of trouble, in addition to all that, we have money to give away,
I love
which
money.
is fantastic.
Love
I'm a fan
money.
as well. It solves a lot of problems very quickly, I find. Now, we don't have a lot. This isn't multi-million dollars or anything like that, and these are not traditional mortgage loans or anything like that. These are bailout loans. So they are meant to be fairly short term, but they are very low interest, especially for this kind of a loan. So if you are in trouble, if you've got a second who's coming after you, who just came back to life, or if you just came out of a forbearance and can't get caught up, we're seeing a lot of that where the banks are saying, hey, it's been great that you haven't made your payment for the last 10 months, and as your payment was $4,000 a month, please cut us a check for $40,000. Well, that's how forbearances work.
But wait a minute. Wait a second. So what's that loan that you could put on the end?
That would be a deferment. And it's not so much a loan you put on the end. It's taking the amount that you've built up in forbearance,
Right,
and just adding that to the end of the loan.
Well, why can't we do that with a forbearance then?
Because it's not up to us. You should be able to. Most banks on most loans will do that. And certainly the big banks, B of A, Citi, Chase, Wells, et cetera, they are almost doing that with just about everybody, which is great. That's a wonderful, because they actually make more money that way. I'll leave that part for some other time. But they actually make more money by doing the right thing. So they're happy to do the right thing. And we think that's wonderful. But there are a lot of the smaller actors, SLS, SPS, they all have initials, guys like this, Mr. Cooper, who are not,
Right.
and the guys farther down market than those, who are not as cooperative. And they see a house that is worth, 20% more than it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And they see a house with all kinds of equity that it didn't have a couple of years ago. And suddenly foreclosure looks really attractive to them, especially in a market that's still increasing, because if it takes them 6 months to foreclose, they figure, well, the house will just be worth more then. So we're seeing a lot of that, especially with junior financing, with seconds, zombie seconds, which we
Are
talked about
people
before.
losing their homes over this?
Yeah. Foreclosures are still happening. Whatever moratoriums, again, they weren't really moratoriums, they were sort of pauses in some segments of the market, the vast majority of them are over now. The stuff that we had through the CARES Act, that sunsetted a while ago, and these banks they're gearing up. They still don't have enough personnel to handle it, but they're absolutely gearing up, and we are seeing more and more foreclosures. We're seeing more and more bankruptcies too. I mean, that's sort of the ebb and flow of the market. You can't pause this stuff for 2 years. Because if you were in trouble 2 years ago before the pandemic with a mortgage, you're not in better shape now.
I was going to say, so don't the banks realize, especially these smaller banks that you're talking about, nothing's changed. It's not like all of a sudden you went back to work and they cut you a $40,000 check and you said, oh, perfect, I can use this for my forbearance.
Well, actually, some things have changed. Most importantly, the value of people's homes.
Oh.
The average value of the home has gone up a lot. So if you had let's say you owed $400,000 on a first and you owed $100,000 on a second, and your house was worth $500,000. That money was effectively used up. A second wouldn't bother foreclosing, because by the time they foreclosed, it wouldn't be worth $500,000. They'd have to get a lot less for it. They wouldn't recoup their money, let alone make money on it. So but that house now is probably worth $700,000, and so they go, well, geez. Yeah. Time to foreclose, sharpen the knives. I mean, that's just unfortunately the way it's happening. It's like it's always been with the banks and mortgages, there is no human component. That has been just squoze out of the equation. And what the funny part to me is the more fuzzy bunny sounding the company's name, like Mr. Cooper or Planet Home Lending, the more fuzzy sounding the name, the less easy they are to deal with. The more barbaric they are, the more ridiculous their rules. Like, well, you can put in the application for a modification, but only on Tuesdays and only in the month of May.
Yeah.
I mean, we get
Yeah.
nonsense like that all the time. We're arguing with a bank right now, a bank called Planet Home Lending, which I love just the warm and fuzzy name of that. Planet Home Lending, when we're here for you. Really? How come you never answer the phone if you're here for me? Anyway, we're arguing with them now because they don't like that our client has given them copies of bank accounts, pay stubs, everything else.
Sure.
But they don't like his P&L because, and I quote, "It is not complicated enough. There must be more here."
Sure.
It's a page. It's not complicated at all. It's a very straightforward secondary business. But we're arguing with him about that. And while we're arguing about it, what he owes on his house is continuing to go up. He's getting closer and closer to a foreclosure date. They have filed an NOD, so they're serious about it. And we're in more and more trouble. So, these banks, they don't. What the banks do only one thing. They maximize profit for their shareholders. That's it. Being mad at a bank for doing anything else is like being mad at a shark for swimming. When a shark, I use this example all the time. When a shark eats a surfer, the shark doesn't go, "Oh, that's a surfer up there, and he's a single father of 4. I should probably wait till the next guy." They go, "No, that looks like a seal, and I'm hungry," and they eat it, and that's kind of it. And the banks are very much the same way. When you give a bank an opportunity to foreclose on your house and make money or be made whole, as they would say it, which is all their fees and all the rest of the nonsense they've built up, they're going to take it. They're not going to say, "Oh, your situation is so dire, and your life has dealt you such an unfair hand that we should help you out." That thought doesn't cross their mind. There is no
But I
department of compassion inside a bank.
2 questions, though.
Yeah.
Because they have such a low moral compass, that it's not, the dial isn't even working.
They don't have one at all.
So they've lost their moral compass. Here's the thing. Okay, so they got this, a house now, and they put someone out on the street. But won't that come back to bite a little bit later? Won't they lose business because won't word get out that do not go here, they are horrible. They
You
are
have no
mean.
choice. You have a mortgage on your house. Did you pick the company you're currently with? I doubt it. Because even if you decide, "I love Bank of America, I think they're the best company ever," and you get your mortgage to Bank of America, 6 minutes after it funds, it can go to somebody else. I've had situations personally where I was at war with a bank, refinanced my house just to get rid of that bank, where 6 months later I was right back to the same bank. And I know better. But part of that was also just part of the exercise, but because it's a fun story to tell. But you don't have control. There are a lot of problems with the way mortgages work in this country, and a lot of them have just grown up over time as solutions to other problems. And one of the reasons a bank will tell you is they have to have the right to be able to broker these loans out, even once they're up and running, to other banks so that they can continue to keep the flow of money going.
Sure.
And that's a good argument. I get that. But certainly we could put guardrails on. Thank goodness they're not allowed to change the interest rates when they move money around. Otherwise, they would. It's a situation where, unfortunately, the system that has evolved, and it's not entirely a bad system, it just weeded out any morality. The banking system in the United States, worldwide really, doesn't have a component for compassion. It just doesn't. And anytime a bank has tried to do that seriously, whoever's in charge tends to get fired. There was a classic situation with Wells Fargo years ago, where there was a gal, this is back in 2007, 2008. We all saw it was going to happen, or as it was getting rolling anyway. And so I was approached by Wells Fargo. She said this gal, she started this new department. She's handling everything west of the Rockies, and it's her job to get these loans sorted out. She sought me out because she'd heard I knew a lot about loan mods, and I do this stuff for a while. I just wanted my opinion. Me and a lot of other people. I wasn't special in this regard. And I told her what I had to say, and it was great. And what Wells would do is they would actually call you up. They would say, "You're having trouble with your mortgage. We see that. Here's the numbers we have in front of us. We'd like to come to your house, and we'd like to sit down and meet with you and see if there's a way we can find a way to work this out." They would show up at your door. They'd spend 45 minutes, an hour with you, kind of going over everything, and they'd tell you to be ready, with your financials and stuff. And you'd walk out with a loan modification. They would come to you, they would do it, and they would leave. This program prevented thousands of foreclosures in California alone, and Wells went, "Oh boy, I don't know about that. We can make more money this other way. We probably should put that program away." And that was it. And then she complained and got fired. She was forced to retire at 42, I think she was, which is an awfully young age to retire as a bank executive. But anyway, it's complete utter nonsense. There is no room for that, which is why we step in. This is why one of the reasons we exist. Moral grounds are great when you're talking on the radio and when you're saying, "Hey, this is what the bank is doing." And if it's a Wells or a B of A, they have a public face and a publicly traded stock, and that has an effect. But if they're SLS or some other company like that that nobody's ever heard of except in some negative connotation, even if they have a public face, it's a minor one. And so no, they can essentially behave with impunity. It's ridiculous, and they know that.
So
all
here's
cost
so full circle.
Yeah.
So full circle now, because we have no moral compass, we do have money.
Money. That is
And
exactly the point.
we have to cross our fingers that
Yeah.
more times this happens than not, that we have these angel investors. If you are in need, please call Richard Sherman at Radius. The phone number is, sir?
My cell phone number, I answer it 24 hours a day. We have an office number and all that stuff. Well, my cell is the best. 661-714-1400. Say it again, 661-714-1400. And if you're in trouble, we have, in addition to all the regular stuff we have at the moment, we actually have some decent funding to clean up some of these things. So
Excellent.
if you're in need, give us a call. We'll help you out. 661-714-1400. And again, it's Rich Sherman.
Because if you're waiting on that moral compass, it's not arriving. It's not in the next Amazon package.
No, unfortunately.
Richard Sherman, always a pleasure.
Thank
Richard
you.
Sherman with a Z.
Yeah.
Radius. Thank you.
Thank you.